Hi, it's Joe Granatelli, and today we're going to do a complete suspension install on this 2010 Camaro Z28. We're going to do front, rear, and mid subframe connectors, as well as some kind of unique parts that we came up with. So we're going to have one continuous loop video, and we're also going to have subsections. So follow along, let's see what you think of all the new Granatelli parts. Okay, so now let's look at the undercarriage of the car in a stock configuration. First thing we're going to do is we're going to install our front A-arm support brace. Also goes to the rear K-members. Then we come into the back, we're going to install our G-load brace, which is also known as a seat box support. And then we're going to have our butterfly subframe connectors that'll go in here. Off of the subframe connectors, what I call butterfly connectors, we have some front kick bars that are going to tie in to the center section here, which is kind of unique for Granatelli, and the same can be said for the rear. Coming off those same connectors, we're going to have brackets that are going to loop all the way to the back, and they're going to tie into these sections as well. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move the two K-member bolts. Now we're going to go back and we're going to put our A-arm support brace in. You'll notice that it's channeled. The channel goes up. So this is going to go into place just like this. We're going to take our spacer, we'll put our spacers in place, bolt goes through, which is supplied in the kit. We're going to put it right back in the same location it just was. Okay, for now we're going to leave this a little bit snug because when we install the next piece I want to make sure it all ties in. So right now we're going to leave this, we'll leave it snug but a little bit loose. If you're just installing this one piece, which is our let's call this our front kit only, then now would be your chance to tighten these up, and that would essentially be the completion of the first installation. Because this is actually sold as one unit, like as it sits. And in this case, you would just tighten these up, and you now be triangulating and supporting the front K-member. A lot of people don't realize, but this section here flexes back and forth, and this actually squares it up pretty good. Okay, the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to remove the seat bracket, also known as a G-load brace. So let's get that out. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put this brace in, our Granatelli replacement Granatelli G-load brace. Now, we're just going to put this one in snug as well, because next thing we're going to do is we're going to install our butterfly subframe connectors, and when we do that we're not going to tighten this either. So, because what's going to happen is those pieces are going to sandwich together. But again, if you were just doing the installation of just our G-load brace, which we know a lot of you are just going to do this one piece, then this is a real simple installation. All you're going to do is you're going to basically remove your 4 factory bolts and put these 4 bolts right back in the exact same holes, and you'll be done. And that's essentially the installation of the Granatelli G-load brace. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to put our butterfly subframe connectors in. And there is a left and a right. The easiest way to tell is this little plate right here. This always goes to the back of the car. So this is actually the driver's side. And you'll see how it indexes in. It's going to index off this front section. Then the middle is going to go, let me get a good spot here. The middle is going to go back on those G-load bolts here. So if we come in here with the camera, we'll see that you're going to take the factory bolts out, and it's going to go back in those places. So if you have a Granatelli G-load brace, then you'll just sandwich it together. If you have the factory little piece in here, you remove those, put this plate in, and then you sandwich your factory piece back in. And then the rear ones are going to index right off of here, and we're going to run a fish plate. We're going to run a fish plate between here and here, another fish plate between here and here, which will give us basically the threaded backing that we need to install our subframe connector, or as we call the butterfly. Okay, this is our front fish plate, and the flat plate will be the rear. So let's start with the front. The front fish plate, say that 3 times fast, is going to go in this crevice here. And then this hole right here is going to actually index on the factory, because from the factory there's already a little nub there with a thread. So we're going to push this through just like this. And then you can see, looking up in the hole right here, you can actually see when the thing lines up. So you wiggle it, and then this one's in. Just like that. Next plate is going to be the back. This one's a little more difficult. This one's already threaded for you. We thread it for you. And you basically put it through at an angle, so you're going to go in a forward motion. Move out of your way. And then once it goes up, you're going to kind of tish it to the side. And when you get it up in there, it just drops in plate. And now you in place, and now you just gotta kind of wiggle it over. And you'll see again that now that the holes, you can get there with the camera, you'll see that the hole lines up there and right there. So 1 and 2. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take these bolts out and we're gonna line this up. It's probably easier to, if you have a friend help you with this. And since we're doing it for the video, I'm going to have my friend help me as well. So I'm going to loosen that down. I'm going to just put, again, I'm going to put these bolts in super loose right now, because what I want to do is I want to be able to finagle this around. And obviously we're trying to triangulate 3 or 4 different bolts, actually 6 in total. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our supplied bolts. Now this little one that we give you, the little one goes in the factory hole, because like I told you, remember this one up here already had a threaded hole from the factory, so that one goes there. And I'm going to leave it loose, and then one of our supplied holes is going to go here. Now hold the fish plate and get the thing started. You want to make sure you get a good thread, a good position on that, because the fish plate is going up and down. So in other words, there's nothing holding that plate down there, so when you do this, you're going to have to be a little bit patient so that it gets a bite. There's that one. Now comes the tricky ones. Once you get the back bolt in, which I think is easier, you're going to hold that bolt down, kind of put some tension on it to hold it down, and that's going to allow you to hold the front fish plate from rotating in a circle. Okay, so now we got our back bolts, which I'm going to tighten up a little more. You let it down. And we got our front 2, and we got these. So it's basically 6 bolts that are going to triangulate this in and make it super sturdy. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install our rear subframe connector. This is what we talked about a little bit earlier. It ties into our butterfly subframe connectors. We give you a stiffening plate, and we give you the rod itself that actually goes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to mock that up for you real quick. We're going to show you this quick. This actually is going to index up these 2 bolt holes, and then it's going to go right back to our C plate. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our plate. You see our plate has a taper. The taper actually follows the arm itself. So the rear bolt, we just go right through here. We put our little nut on it to get a kind of a rough idea. Then the front one is going to actually go through and sandwich the 2 pieces together. And again, we're leaving everything loose until we get it all mocked up and in place. We do our fronts. And as you can see, as this is coming together, you get the makings of kind of a nice little spider web underneath the car. But effectively what we're doing is we're really stiffening up the bottom of the car and we're making the car solid top and bottom. You know, these cars have what's called subframe connectors, and this actually makes it almost as if it were a poor man's full frame. Now we'll do the other side, and then we'll be done with this. Remember, everything is still loose on this car. So when we're done, we're going to tighten everything up. And a lot of this is done integrally, meaning that the subframes, the butterflies can be installed individual of themselves. We sell it as a kit. The rear is another upgrade. The G-load brace comes by itself. Next, we're going to have kickers. They're going to go from the front all the way here. We're going to have a big A-frame that goes in here that squares this whole thing up. And then our A-arm support brakes up here in the front, or our rear K-member support, I should say, it's also sold individually as another unit. So basically, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 phases of different suspension upgrades. Okay, so now you see we have the back all complete. The next thing we're going to do now is we're going to install the A-frame, which is also a front K-member support. And this only works when you've already purchased the front K-member support plate. They all go together. What that does is we remove the bolts that were in the rear of the subframe connector, the ones that come with the factory threaded holes. And then this unit, this A-frame, will go in as one big unit as well. And then this will slide in on top. So it goes in on top to triangulate. Okay, the next thing, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put our front bolts in. We'll put our nylock on the top. As you can see, it's getting pretty tight in here, but and essentially, after everything's tightened up, you now have what we have, the complete Granatelli Phase 5. This is everything we have to offer.